Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about feelings of financial deprivation during divorce. I'm Laurie Itkin. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst known as a CDFA, and I'm also a wealth manager, and I practice throughout California. I've worked on over 350 divorce cases in California, and one of the issues that I see a lot are clients feeling deprived when they think about the financial issues. And I am so delighted to welcome today Rachel Alexandria, who is a former psychotherapist, and I will let you know what she's doing now. But I have known her through our Hera Hub community, and just every time she has her guru hours, she talks about issues that I find so intriguing, and I'm delighted to introduce you all to her today. So Rachel, please let us know a little bit about you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to get to share with your community. So I'm a former psychotherapist, practiced for 8 years, and then I shifted over to something that I call being a soul medic and intuitive guide. So it's really a combination of therapeutic technique, transformational work, energy work, spiritual guidance, for lack of a better term, but also I bring a lot of knowledge of structure so people can basically take what I help them with and apply it on a regular basis because structured practice is actually what brings change.
Oh, I like that structured practice breeds change. And I'm such a pragmatic person. I always like structure, and I like that the combination, because you're dealing with feelings and emotions, which often are very hard to structure.
Well, right, we can't structure those, but we can have plans to deal with them.
Right. Well, I know you offer what's called a magic session, and I just love the name. And so if let's say a woman came to you, she was going through divorce, and she was understanding that assets would be divided, debts would be assigned. Maybe she's getting less child or spousal support than she thought. God forbid she's got to move out of the marital home, and she's feeling deprived, financially deprived, and frankly, emotionally deprived as well.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I have been through divorce myself, and that was once I accepted that that's where things were going between us. The next thing that came up was fear because I was not financially viable by myself running my own
Mm.
business. So I know firsthand what that experience is like. I mean, deprivation kind of suggests um, an entitlement, right? And that's kind of what happens when we have loss
Mm.
because all we can think of is things aren't going to be what I've grown comfortable with, what I am used to, right? And we don't know what the future holds and what possible good things there are. All we know is what we're losing. And
Yeah.
it can feel extremely painful. Like we are evolutionarily geared to not lose things.
How interesting. How interesting. So, because you talked about a sense of loss, but also a sense of fear. And I would
Oh, yeah.
have to think that's a very lethal combination.
It's really scary. The first time I started looking for my own place to live, moving out of the marital home we had just bought,
Mm.
um, I I felt actually nauseous and dizzy and I had to go lie down. Like that's how intense my feelings were. They manifested in the physical. And it just took like a lot of holding myself and self-soothing and relying on support from other folks to get myself, to the place where I'm like, it's hard and this really is painful and it sucks. I don't know how it's all going to work out, but I'm going to be okay. And let me just put one foot forward in front of the other.
Well, I like that tip about one foot forward, and taking steps, because I know that with my clients, especially the clients, whether they're a man or a woman, who were not the financial caretakers of the household, who really have limited financial literacy,
Mhm.
and they feel overwhelmed. And even though I'm there to try to break it down, I think I'm a pretty good teacher. It seems to turn into paralysis for some
Yeah.
clients, and I don't know how to help them.
Mm.
They-
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens in the fight or flight or freeze response. That is a trauma response. That's naturally what we do. If something becomes so much that we can't comprehend how to deal with it, like the feelings become so intense and we don't have a way to manage that, we will go into freeze. I mean, that is, yeah, again, a very well studied phenomenon. And it's really scary to be in freeze. But the reason that we do that is that it kind of numbs some of our feelings, which feel intolerable, right? So it is kind of the body's coping mechanism, like, this is too intense, so let's just throw some anesthesia on it and care less for a while and not look at the scary thing because it's too much. So
yeah.
it is a temporary experience, but it also can train us to keep sticking our head in the sand. Like, oh no, last time I went there, it was just so overwhelming. I can't go there. I just can't.
I
Right.
understand.
So when we have that experience, like what I described briefly in mine, I approach things like I'm pretty quick to understand when inevitable change is coming, and I'd rather be on the front of that wave rather than let the wave hit me in the face. Like I'm pretty good at grasping this is going to happen whether or not I like it, whether or not I'm ready for it, whether or not I'm paying attention to it. So I am going to suffer less damage by somehow supporting myself emotionally and mentally and structurally to figure out how to deal with it, even if it's in small pieces at a time.
Gosh, what a
So,
good analogy. I mean, this wave analogy. I mean, I can see myself not being a body surfer or a surfer. I can imagine that if you know that wave's coming and you're not ready for it, you don't do anything and you pretend like it's not there, you could get hurt. But if you're going to be on riding that wave and in front of it, I mean, in front of the train, I mean, well, no, you
mhm.
don't really want to be in front of the train head on.
Well, you don't
You
wanna
want to be
be hit by
driving
the
the
train,
train.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
it's an analogy I got from working with a guy in my practice who had his head big time in the sand about his wife who was very clearly leaving him, like, wasn't even living in the marital home anymore, was probably seeing somebody else, was being weird about their finances, and he just was, so passive and so kind of, like, deadened to the experience, and I kept saying, this wall, it's like the coin machine, like if anyone's been at an arcade where you put the coins in and the wall keeps sliding forward to push the quarters off, like you are going to get pushed over the ledge, whether or not you like it, whether or not you're paying attention. And I'm trying to help you like get present enough to do some things that will help you not have such horrible consequences. If he'd done nothing, he would have suffered much more financially. So this is probably what you experience. You're like, please wake up so we can we can do things to help you like mitigate the loss, make it not quite as bad.
Yeah, I find that most of I serve either as a neutral to two people or I'm an advocate to one person. And when I'm an advocate, it's typically a woman.
Hmm.
And I find one of the responses is that there's so much anger that
Mm,
they won't make decisions that are in front of them to make. They instead want to say, well, 10 years ago, I know he hid an account on his in his brother's name, and they go back focusing on the fact that they must resolve that particular issue before
mm,
they can make any decisions. And I don't, again, not having
mm,
a psychology background and being more of a robot than an emotive person or a nurturer, I get frustrated because I don't know. Okay, I'm thinking in my head, that's not relevant to the issues at hand. And I
right.
wish there could be a way for you to channel your anger, disappointment,
Mhm.
regret, fear some other way. And that's probably when I might suggest a magic session. And again,
Yeah.
the name magic session, I mean, it means different things to different people, but
Mhm.
you named it as such. And what could somebody expect if they came to you and you had never met with them before? It's a really a first time occurrence.
I'm really good. So, the benefits that people might think about getting from therapy when they've been going for a bit You're like, oh, when you really are used to your therapist, you go to a session and afterwards you feel better, right? And they
Usually
think, well,
better.
yeah, you hopefully in some way better. Or you go to a shamanic practitioner or a Reiki healer or something like that. If you combine those effects and the fact that I have a particular ability to see the truth really fast, like
Mm,
I am a master of student behavior and a psychology, I wouldn't want to say psychology expert, but like personal growth expert. So
mhm.
I've been doing this for 16 years and I also am extremely intuitive. So you don't have to spend tons and tons of sessions with me for me to get what's going on and to see like your own roadblocks. There's just really common things that people do. So I pretty much know, oh, is it going to be issue A, B, C, D, E, F, or G? It's going to be one of these, even if there's 20, that's not a lot. Like there's just common patterns we do. So the thing that you're describing where people have so much anger and they get fixated on the past and they can't move forward. Yep, I know that one. And so depending on the person, that's the other thing. Like, I can help people just by witnessing. Like, sometimes all that has to happen is that their emotions really need witnessing, especially anger. Anger, like all of the things that we think are anger, like the yelling, the throwing chairs, the, you know, saying a bunch of negative, judgy things about people. That's not actually an expression of anger. That is like the blockage, like the postponement of anger. There's a book that's really great called How to Be an Adult, and
Mm,
it says that's not anger, that's drama.
mm,
Drama expressed doesn't relieve anger. Anger
mm.
needs to be witnessed for what it is and acknowledged for what it is. So just sometimes being like, yeah, I get it. You're super angry. I would be too. That makes sense. I like, let's just really spend time acknowledging your anger and letting that be here and validating that so that it feels seen, because that's what it wants. It wants to tell you someone's been harming you, whether or not that's true, but that's the story, right? That's the
Well, you
perceived
feel
experience.
harmed. It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be physical harm. It can be you feel
right.
harmed.
Right. I mean, someone has I'm just saying that because our stories about what someone has done to us isn't always fully the accurate truth, but
Mm,
it is our experience.
mhm.
Someone's done a thing to me, right? And so I just need to like let that out. And a lot of times if it's let out and someone's there and they witness it with you, then there's some relief because that's what it wanted, was to be seen. So that's one thing that can
It's
happen.
beautiful.
But there's lots of other things, it's just really about helping people see, like, why are they stuck in whatever feeling or experience they're stuck in. And then I have beyond, therapeutic witnessing and reflection, which are very powerful, other tools. Like I use things like EFT tapping, which is tapping on acupressure points and to help like regulate the nervous system. It's similar-ish to EMDR, which people might have heard of, but it helps the nervous system not be so heightened around whatever the topic is. So that's another thing that could happen in a magic session, but pretty much everyone who comes even just for this one session gets out of the place they were stuck in. They
Mm.
feel relief of some kind. They have a new way of looking at it, or they have a new felt experience that they can hold on to, or at least remember when they get riled up again, like, oh, there is a possibility of getting out of this.
That's wonderful because I mean, many of us have been to therapy. I've, of course, throughout my life been to therapy at certain times, and it's always, you come once a week or twice a week or once or and people, obviously therapies. I'm a huge fan of therapy, but in a
Mhm.
divorce situation, you don't have the luxury of time that it takes to really go back and understand all those things from your childhood and throughout, and so that you offer a magic session. And it sounds like, I mean, I've witnessed all when you speak and talk about topics, you're extremely intuitive, not to mention intelligent and articulate. So that's why I really wanted to introduce you to the folks watching today. And how can they get a hold of you to book a magic session?
So I can certainly send you a link, but there's a page on my website, which I believe is magic.rachelalexandria.com.
Mhm. And
But
your main website's your name, correct?
yeah, rachelalexandria.com.
Any dots or not, just rachelalexandria.com. There you got it,
rachelalexandria.com.
folks. She's right here, Rachel Alexandria. That's
Yeah.
that's an easy way to meet to find you. Well, Rachel, this has been so wonderful. Just the visuals you provided, the examples, and you obviously have empathy and a heart. And so glad you could be with me today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laurie.